Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show.
His Dark Materials is the BBC-HBO joint show that came out last year to great acclaim, adapting the first of Philip Pullman's trilogy of books into a pretty solid show. And now, a year or so later, the second season is starting up. Episode 201, The City of Magpies, picks up where things left off last time, with Lyra and Pan having crossed through the tear in the worlds, and she's found herself in a sort of Mediterranean-looking place with a city that has kind of funky architecture. But it's all kinds of empty, or so it seems until Will appears, and he grabs her. And after showing him who's boss, Lyra and Pan decide to go elsewhere. But before long they end up meeting up again, and after a little bit of chat they get on a bit better, and they explain to each other how they're both from different worlds, and they decide to team up for safety. But before too long they end up bumping into some other kids who are a bit weird, and they run away, and when they manage to catch up with them they realise it's actually her off Game of Thrones, hiya, and her mate, and they're like, yeah, you're safe, but that boy is almost old enough for the shadow monsters to take him away. And then they run away again, and Lyra and Will try to just be flatmates in a kind of adorably innocent fashion, and slowly they gain some trust in each other, but not too much yet. Meanwhile, back in Lyra's world, Lee Scoresby gets invited to a witch moot where Seraphina's having a big argument with another queen about some witch that got caught by the magisterium, and the other queen wants to go in full guns blazing, like since the witch might be getting tortured, and Seraphina's a wee bit like, nah, maybe not. But they're not actually too wrong, because Mrs.Coulter has, as usual, been convincing all the horny priests that she should be in charge, and in this case in charge of the torturing, and she starts pulling out all the witch's magic feathers. And while she's at it, the Queen Witch zooms in and ends up killing the other witch. And then she massacres loads of the guards on the way out and ends up getting a stab on the cardinal in the process. So, of course, Mrs. Coulter uses that to try and convince the other priests that she ought to be in charge. Again. And that night, finally, Lyra decides to use the alethiometer again, and she's going to see if Will can be trusted. And just as she does that, he goes out for a wander and starts getting stalked by a shadow monster. Ooh. So what did I think? Well, I actually thought this was a pretty good start to a new season. I liked the way that they introduced Will and Lyra and the way they showed their growing friendship over this episode. It was kind of believable, it was kind of fun. There was a whole thing about the omelettes that was quite funny. And they do seem like a good team, and I like the way that the actors have been playing off each other really well.
I actually think it's more complicated than that.
And I thought the city of Citygazi, or City of Magpies, looked really cool. And total props to the set designers as well as, all the people who actually built all that. And presumably some of that was shot in real streets, I think, as well. I mean, if not, even better. I mean, wow, seriously good stuff. And yeah, I thought that a lot of the things that were really great in the last season were great this time, like cinematography and the CGI on the demons, that was just absolutely flawless. I also liked that I think there was some changes to the opening credit sequence. I think more to tie in line with the stuff from this game. And again, much like the original season's one, if you look closely at what happens in the intro credits, it actually is telling you an awful lot about the universe and about the story that's going to come. Yeah, it'd been so long since I actually read the books, I'd completely forgotten about things like the witch getting tortured. But yeah, that was straight out of the book. Although I can't remember if Mrs. Coulter was quite so, flash your eyes and suddenly get in charge back in the book. And that's where I kind of start having a few issues with things. Now, I did have some problems with Mrs. Coulter in Season 1. Exactly because of this sort of thing, this running idea that you've got a bunch of zealot priests who are all immediately about to just let this woman do absolutely anything just because she wears fancy dresses and pouts a little at them. It just seems a little bit silly to me and a little bit unbelievable, although considering what Pullman thinks about religion, about the church in general, it's not entirely surprising he wrote it this way. But I mean, this is an adaptation. I thought they might tone it down rather than sort of beefing it up a bit. But yeah, I mean, it just comes across as a little bit silly. I mean, even more so because at this stage, they're about to go to war with literally super fast ninja witches who can zoom about all the place doing all kinds of crazy things. And they've got Bible-breaking revelations happening through a universe which is going to send like humanity into a panic and have some kind of, potentially some great sort of uprising or literally kind of reformation. But yeah, they're worried about like this one woman in a red dress being, super important. And on a side note, how come the witch managed to zoom in, kill the other witch, and then went right out, killing out 5 guards or something like that, and basically like future Pope, and didn't kill Mrs. Coulter, just like completely ignored her, even though she was the one who was literally torturing her mate to death? That just seems unlikely. It seems like the kind of thing you're just not supposed to think about. And back with Will and Lyra, I mean, that was fine, but when they first met up, why does Will grab Lyra? I mean, that doesn't seem to be in his character, like from the personality we saw in the first season. I mean, he's the kind of guy who'd run up right behind and grab a wee lassie. I mean, he's more like the kind of person who would have like walked up and then stiffly said, "Hello there," from the other side of the room, you know. I mean, I get it's so that we can see that Lyra's a bit rough and tumble, and so that he knows that, and we know he knows that, and we know that she's not a pushover, but it just seemed a little bit weird in my head. Also, I never noticed when I read the book, but the whole plot in the city of Cittàgazze is kind of awfully similar to like an episode of Star Trek. You know, the one where Kirk goes to a planet and there's only kids there. Yeah, I mean, anyway, that it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something that I never noticed. But yeah, there wasn't an awful lot that happened this week, so there's not a huge amount for me to talk about. And that's kind of good as well, because it means there wasn't anything that bad or anything that amazing. But yeah, I'm going to get on with episode 2, and I'll hopefully get that covered and uploaded before episode 3 comes out, because I am running a week behind. But I'm enjoying this so far, and it's really great to be back. So till next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions. And a special thanks to everybody listening, and especially my patrons, and most especially to Michelle Forbes and Judith Coloma, my top tier patrons. Thank you everybody. Everybody stay safe. Cheerio.